the election 2016 results for Donald Trump and the Republican Party came about, I think that Hillary Clinton and her campaign thought of women as a voting bloc, the way that they think of the black vote as a voting bloc, or the Latino vote as a voting bloc, or here in the People's Republic of New York City, how the Hasidic Jewish vote is a voting bloc, a uniform group that will just vote the same way. Women throughout history, my opinion, and I've done a little research on this, have never been a bloc of votes the way that other ethnic groups have been. And I think that was a major mistake by the Clinton campaign. What do you think, having worked on campaigns and worked in D.C. and being our expert, Amanda? Am I onto something there?
You are. And you know what, Gene? I'm not only going to say that their thinking was incorrect, I'm going to say that they were sexist in thinking so.
Wow. Okay. Go with it. They were sexist in thinking so. Go ahead.
Yes, they were sexist in thinking so, because what they are saying by saying women have to vote for Hillary Clinton because of solidarity, or because Hillary Clinton feels a certain way about a handful of issues, what they're saying to me as a woman is that I'm apparently not supposed to care about any issues other than 3 or 4, that I couldn't possibly prioritize national defense over abortion, or that I couldn't care about prosperity in small businesses more than I care about birth control. They tailor their message around this tiny little area of public policy and assume that women have no other interest other than those. I think that is incredibly sexist. And one thing I will always pride myself on as a Republican is that we make no sort of assumption, like the Democrats do, about different groups, where we assume that they only care about this narrow band of issues. They are regular, hardworking Americans just like everyone else, and everyone in this country has different things that they care about, and it is a shame and a travesty that they generalize groups the way they do.
Absolutely right. Folks, you're listening to Behind Enemy Lines Radio, here from the People's Republic of New York City. I'm Gene, she's Amanda. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be discussing the comeuppance of mainstream media and this election cycle. Oh my goodness, there is so much to talk about on this subject, and we're going to see how media interaction with the public even turned off the voters more so to Hillary Clinton. Gene and Amanda, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want is less government, more fun. Pass it on, make it happen.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines Radio is all about being right. No, seriously, it is. If you ever listen to Russ Gallo or me go back and forth on some issue, we always want to make sure that we remember who said what and when we said it. That's why we go to goonrecord.com. It's a brand new social media website. Challenge people on what they believe, whether it's in politics, sports, entertainment, finance, whatever. There's a category for you at goonrecord.com. Check it out right now. Tell us, what do you stand for? It's time for you to go on record. Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene and Amanda. Back behind Enemy Lines. You know, Amanda, you got a little bit of that Gallo, anger in you tonight. I'm kind of digging it.
Just a little bit, Gene. I'm still a little bit, drinky drink from election night. That was
hard
night.
Goodness. Shout out to the Proud Boy magazine election night party where we were invited to. Actually, not only invited, but they included this on the marketing of the party, and over 200 people showed up. Martin Scarelli showed up at this party. It was ridiculous.
Not only that, Gene, he played some of the Wu-Tang album that no one has heard. The one that people made a petition to the government to get the FBI to subpoena him.
How awesome was that? How awesome was that? That was fantastic.
Gene, do you realize we're probably out of this country, millions of people, only 100 now have heard this album.
Absolutely. You know what? And half of us were drinking so much, we probably don't even remember that we heard it. Listen,
just remember it was lit.
Exactly. Oh, the party was amazing. Thank you to Gavin McGinnis and Jack Buckby and all the gang with Proud Boy magazine for inviting us to their launch party and election night party. It was awesome. Speaking of media, and this is a nice little segue, let me set up this segment of the show for you, Amanda. Is it possible that the mainstream media actually prevented Hillary Clinton from winning? Check this out. Media Research Center and YouGov did a joint poll regarding media coverage of the presidential election. Here's what they found out. Now, listen, you're Miss Crosstab, so you can check all this stuff out later at newsbusters.org. One of the great organizations that works with Behind Enemy Lines Radio, they do Behind Enemy Headlines with us once a month. So 69% of those polled do not believe that news media is honest or fair. 78% believe the presidential election coverage was biased. Within that 78%, 59% said it was biased in favor of Hillary Clinton. 21% said it was in favor of Donald Trump. Here's the kicker for me. 8% of Trump voters that responded in this poll said that their vote would have changed to Clinton if they believed what the media was saying about him. That could have changed the election. And finally, this to me is shocking. Of the people polled by Media Research Center and YouGov, 97% said that the media did not influence their vote. I can't believe that, Amanda. That to me is shocking.
You know what, Gene? I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. And I'm surprised that you are shocked.
Well, I'm sorry, but I thought that the permeability of the mainstream media was beyond 3% of at least this sample. But let's say it's 10%. I thought the permeability, especially with the oh my goodness, the overload of media coverage, I thought that's, a lot more would have permeated through.
But you know what, Gene? It's not the quantity. It's how it was provided. It in drips and drabs. I've never actually seen so much outward bias in the media. And I say that as someone who was vocally against Trump the entirety of this election. Even I do not believe Trump was covered fairly. And just using little examples, I think about Huffington Post. Did you read any Huffington Post articles during the course of the election?
Oh, absolutely. Each one of them came with a disclaimer talking about Donald Trump.
Exactly. How can you possibly credit yourself as an objective mainstream media source and have a disclaimer at the bottom of your article that essentially denigrates one of the very candidates you're covering?
It's unbelievable. And by the way, on election night, Huffington Post tweeted out that, and before the polls even closed, that Hillary Clinton was a 98.1% favorite to win the presidency. My, oh my, how bias will just blind you to the truth.
Oh, I actually don't think there was any bigger perpetrator of bias than Huffington Post, with the way that they did their editorials, with the way they did their polling. And what really gets to me, I have been following pretty closely 538 towards the last month of the election to see how Nate Silver was doing his tracking. And the day before the election, Nate Silver had warned everyone that he was going to give Trump better odds to win than any of the other poll aggregators out there. I think he said that Clinton had about a 65% chance of winning the race. He had a much more conservative take and warned that there was a possibility that the polls had significantly not captured reality, that there was flaws in how they were assessing it. And while he still predicted the Clinton win, he said, but I'm not going to rest my laurels on it. And you know what? Nate Silver, once again, turned out to be right.
Well, he was the closest to being right. I wouldn't exactly call him right. But, clearly the polling that makes up the Real Clear Politics average, just about, I would say, close to all of them, with the exception of maybe two, LA Times being one of them, they were all skewed way to Clinton. How do you explain all these polls getting it wrong? Was it an issue of the sample? Was it an issue of the phrasing of questions? Or was it something else?
I think it was the hidden Trump voter. And what kills me is that there were several media outlets who wrote editorials saying not to believe that there was a hidden Trump voter. I think Huffington Post actually is one of them. I think BuzzFeed was one of them. I think the New York Times is one of them, that said, you're hearing this narrative about there are people who are saying that they're voting for Clinton, they're expressing their disgust for Trump. When they actually get to the voting booth, they're going to vote Trump. And they dismissed that concept outright, and I think that actually very much was reality.
The forgotten voter. The voter, and this goes back to our previous discussion of liberal hubris. The political correctness that was permeating society during the whole campaign. A Trump voter was not going to be shamed and participate in a poll. A Trump voter was not going to engage and be shamed as bigoted, uneducated, misogynistic, homophobic, what have you. The Trump voter refused to partake in the discussion. And when that happens, though, how does a pollster compensate for that? Do you have to create a safe space for polling now?
That's a hard question, Gene. How do you accommodate for the Bradley effect? I don't actually think that that's something that's going to be resolved over the next few cycles, because it's also not something that exists exclusively here. This is something that we also saw with Brexit. Lord Ashcroft, who is their big pollster over there in the UK, also had the same issue. People said that they were going to vote Remain, and he ended up having a breakout Brexit vote.
You know what? Here's what I think. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what has to happen. The media has to eat some crow, and they have to admit that they got this wrong. The New York Times, the publisher of the New York Times, put out a letter saying they are rededicating themselves to honesty and integrity of journalism. I'm paraphrasing, of course, which to me is a backwards admission that they did not cover this fairly. Could you imagine the New York Times saying, the paper of record saying that we did not cover an election quite fairly as we should have? There's got to be some crow eating there. The other thing that has to happen is a change of culture, which has started with this election, maybe. We've always talked about change of political correctness and the change of political culture here. Maybe this election is the catalyst for people to start saying what they want to say. And the people who are running to the safe spaces and people who are being offended by what's being said, maybe it's time for them to actually be put in their place and say, no, You're the one that's moving this time. I think maybe if there's